Breaking news we continue to follow here on HQ in college basketball. Maryland is hiring Buzz Williams away from Texas A&M. Williams, of course, previously with Marquette, Virginia Tech, and those 6 seasons at A&M, ready to take over a Terrapins program. Kevin Willard is leaving for Villanova, and it might be a little bit of a rebuild job, but in this day and age, of course, of NIL and the portal, things can happen quickly. Buzz Williams will try to get that done in College Park, as all 10 players who played at least 50 minutes are gone from Maryland, graduating into the portal or going into the draft, as a guy like Derek Queen would do. All right, let's bring in Matt Norlander and Mike O'Donnell here now. Chris Honorado with you guys here. Matt, just kind of first blush at this, your reaction to Buzz Williams leaving A&M for Maryland.
This is not surprising on a couple of fronts here. Buzz Williams was considered to be among the 2 or 3 most likely names to take over in Maryland, dating back to a week ago when we weren't sure for certain that Kevin Willard was going to leave Maryland for Villanova. But in the event that did happen, ultimately it did. Buzz Williams' name was out there. And one reason why was Buzz Williams' name has been attached, not exceedingly publicly, but Buzz Williams has looked around at potential other jobs in this cycle and a year ago. So did a fine job at Texas A&M, but it was no secret in the industry that Buzz Williams was certainly open to potentially moving if the job was going to be right. Quite clearly, he thinks that moving out of the SEC and going into the Big Ten and moving yet again is the move for him. This is a coach who did a really nice job at Marquette and then went to Virginia Tech. That surprised some people when he did. And then, in his final year at Virginia Tech, there was a ton of Texas A&M noise. He goes to A&M. He's been there for 6 years, and now he's going to go on to Maryland. The notable thing also about this hiring is that this comes on the heels of Len Elmore, who was, a proud, famous alum of that program. He sent out a letter on social media on Monday that said, "Do not hire a mercenary coach. We want someone with actual ties and attachment to the program. No more getting burned by anyone." Well, Buzz Williams is not the kind of candidate that a lot of people that are connected to that school were necessarily looking for. I'm told that there was a few other names of well-known sitting head coaches that were at least tossed into the pile to consider, but ultimately this has been Williams, and he has been the leader since Sunday, and they get it done quickly, and that timeline is important because the portal is open. There are 1,500 plus players in this thing right now, and Maryland leadership, even with no sitting active full-time AD, wanted to get a coach in as soon as possible to try and salvage whatever is left of that roster and or build whatever players they can in the coming weeks.
Matt brings up all of the great points about Buzz Williams and Maryland. I think the first thing that Maryland fans need to understand is, regardless of what happens next year, the Maryland team's going to play hard. If you watch Buzz Williams' teams, wherever he was at, those teams play exceptionally hard. He gets them to buy into culture. He gets them to buy into competing and winning. And Texas A&M won at a very high level this season in arguably the greatest conference season we've ever had in college basketball. There was nothing like what the SEC did in non-conference play, conference play, and then getting 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. And Texas A&M was in the upper echelon of that. That matters. That does mean something. I'd actually kind of like to, if I can ping pong back to Matt, one of the more interesting things, I've played at Maryland. I know how intense that fan base is, that is just constantly thinking about the Gary Williams era and how they competed and how they played hard. Matt, could you talk from the average fan who says, well, isn't the Texas A&M job, that's an SEC job, that should have more resources than the Maryland job? How does that fit, even though I think a lot of us diehards still have that pinch of ACC when we talk about Maryland in the back of our brains? But how does that Maryland job actually fit in terms of, if you were ranking, talking about big-time college basketball jobs and support?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I can be quick on it. To me, Maryland is a better job than Texas A&M. Texas A&M, depending on how we're going to go with revenue share in the next few months, and if that gets indeed cleared as people expect it to be, how much money gets allocated to the men's basketball program, that area, that alumni-supported A&M is real, it's big, but the football obviously comes first. Maryland, to me, has traditionally been a top 20 job in the country. Now, a lot of Willard's issues with it stem from the fact that they weren't operating like a top 20 men's basketball unit from a financial and resource standpoint. But getting a new coach in, we've seen this in the past couple of cycles, and it will be interesting to see if we get it in a significant way for Maryland over the next few weeks and months here. Can Buzz Williams' hiring induce Maryland to get out of the position that it was over the past 2 years? And where it was in the bottom third of NIL support in the Big Ten. Now, can you get an infusion if Maryland is going to be able to compete immediately and going to be able to build a roster that can be of a top 30 level? Then Maryland is going to need to have $6.5–7 million worth of shared resources when it comes to roster building there. Remains to be seen if Buzz Williams can rally that at a time when the fan base is obviously coming off a very tumultuous period at the end of Kevin Willard. Some will certainly rally around Buzz Williams, but he is not going to be the kind of hire where across the board there's going to be universal cheering. He's a good coach. He can win there. But this is not, you only have so many options at this point of the cycle with buyouts, et cetera, et cetera.
Man, I get this isn't a one-year job for Buzz, so he can build it. But in terms of being competitive right away, knowing that there's nobody on this roster currently who he can really kind of lean on, how quickly can he make Maryland a competitive team again in 25-26?
There's certainly an absolute chance that he can do that. To speak completely transparently and honestly and bluntly here, there's no telling if Maryland will be any good next season. It depends on who Buzz Williams' staff, how much money he has in NIL. This is a major, major thing. I mean, it just is. It has reached a point here where the top 40 to 50 players that are going to be in the portal are going to command every single, I'm talking top 50 players. Like, there's not going to be a single player that's considered top 50 that's going to run you cheaper than $400,000. I mean, Donovan Dent, I got told by a reliable source just a couple of days ago, got more than $3 million all told to go to play at UCLA. And, he's been one of the best players in the portal. So it matters how much money that you have to build a roster. Coaching can only take you so far. It can be an impactful thing, but there's no telling right now if Maryland will wind up being a top 20 team under Buzz Williams in year one and kind of a success story like Mark Pope at Kentucky a season ago or Kevin Young at BYU. Or, given the volatile nature of the portal, this year is a lot more volatile than it was last year. And it was more volatile than it was 2 years ago and then 3 years ago. So there's no saying if Maryland will not even compete for an NCAA tournament bid, if it'll be a bubble team, if it'll be a comfortable 7-8 seed, or if it can jump in and be, a 3-4-5 seed. A lot of that will be determined over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild sprint for Buzz Williams and Maryland fans. The identification of talent in the portal. It'll be interesting to see. We'll start to get a feel for what Buzz Williams is going to bring to Maryland in terms of those first 2 or 3 guys that he brings in. Most likely they're going to be transfers through the portal. You may get a freshman or two. You don't know what actually is going to happen. It'll be interesting to see if he adjusts his style at all. Does his style actually work in the Big Ten? Will he recruit to his style, or will he make a turn in how he's recruiting to adjust to maybe Big Ten play? We saw what Penn State tried to do this season. They tried to run kind of counterintuitive to what Big Ten basketball was and play a little bit more freestyle, fast-paced offense, and it didn't actually work. So we're going to have an opportunity for Buzz Williams in Maryland to look at this position and say, what are we going to try to build? We're going to try to build quickly. How do we build quickly? You got to build through the portal. Do we have the money to do it? Let's make an assumption that there's money there, but it's not money to win the Big Ten, just from a transfer portal perspective. What is success for Maryland fans? Well, it's perceived as a job to where you want to get to the Sweet 16 virtually every single season. That's essentially, at a minimum, the expectation of Maryland fans. Matt already said it's a top 20 job, and it comes with the pressures of that and the intensity of that. Getting players in the transfer portal is not easy. I will say that as quickly as Buzz Williams can evaluate the talent versus for his system versus just recruiting guys is going to be a huge key. You're going to see that phrase player evaluation come up more and more and more as it relates to players, getting players inside the transfer portal versus just recruiting players. With the new revenue share coming next, if that passes and how that passes and what that actually looks like from a NIL collective standpoint, it's all in flux. It's all wild. But Buzz Williams, I will say this, everywhere he's went, he has won. He has gone to the tournaments, and he recruits tough guys. I do think there is a glimmer of hope for Maryland fans that I think that style can be embraced, but he's going to have to win at a very high level to be fully embraced.
23 wins this year at A&M, but didn't get beyond the first weekend in the NCAA tournament. Matt Norlander, Mike O'Donnell with us here on HQ, breaking down the breaking news of Buzz Williams leaving Texas A&M for Maryland. A reminder, if you don't yet have that March Madness Live app, get it ahead of Final Four weekend. You can watch every game live, no matter where you are.